or over Unity machine.
It's important to keep an open mind and realize that all the principles that drive the over Unity machines operate outside of everything you've ever heard about science.
Over Unity, huh?
That's an efficiency of over 100%.
Kind of makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside, don't it?
If you mean it makes me feel like I feel about the Easter Bunny or Santa Claus, yeah, that kind of warm and fuzzy, because it's a fantasy!
I'm not surprised at this recent scandal that they dug up about the dumbness of the school books they're writing. Here's the government telling these outrageous lies to every child in America, every adult in America, and every old person in America. They've been stealing and hiding technology for so long, they don't want it to move any faster.
For a long time now, scientists have been busy congratulating each other for proving some aspect of the theory of relativity. As recently as 1995, they've rewarded their colleagues with Nobel Prizes and declared long-held beliefs about the theory as proven fact. Meanwhile, we, as part of the unwashed masses, wait patiently for our eminent scientists to let us in on the joke. Aside from the atomic bomb, just what part of this illustrious concept can we hold in our hands and use in our daily lives? One is left wondering if scientists even care about the day-to-day phenomena that are still left unexplained. We may ask, what is gravity? And the answer is gravitons. Or, what is electricity? Well, it's electrons. Aside from their precious relativity, are there coexistent theories that are worth considering? After all, the majority of our greatest scientists, Michael Faraday, James Clerk Maxwell, Sir William Crookes, and Lord Kelvin, never even heard of relativity, nor would it have helped them if they did. Just what made scientists want to embrace the peculiar claims of a second-rate clerk in a Swiss patent office as the preeminent end-all to scientific progress? As almost an apology to the unworkability of Einstein's rants, we are offered a steady stream of new and ever more complex quantum mechanics and string theory to dazzle us, or baffle us beyond belief. If Michael Faraday and Sir William Crookes never used relativity to further their understanding of gravity and electrodynamics, just what did they base their experiments on? And why do we never re-examine those concepts? Is there a forgotten physics with a different set of rules, hidden away from us early in the last century by a powerful elite who fear that the technology based on it will strip away their power and wealth and liberate us from their grip? A bold and outrageous statement that can never be proven, right?
Today we're going to make something truly special. We're going to make something called cold fusion. Now, it's very controversial because cold fusion is said not to exist, or it is said not to be possible, or at least the experiment can't be replicated. Well, I'm going to at least prove one of those myths wrong. First, I'm going to talk about the process a little more. Now, what happens in this chamber, it's going to make a plasma arc. It's also going to make hydrogen. What's going to happen when the plasma arc hits the hydrogen? You guessed it. It's going to burn the hydrogen. That's how this process works. The plasma arc and the current make hydrogen and burn hydrogen at the same time. That's why some people say that we can make over unity by using a little energy to excite the hydrogen to make more energy. This is what the big controversy is all about. Kind of sounds like a Ferrari underwater, huh? That's cool.
Okay, I'd like to get into some free energy technology now. The first thing I'm really fascinated about is your discussion of the atomic hydrogen torch. And if anybody's a welder these days, they probably haven't even heard of an atomic hydrogen torch. Maybe you might want to explain a little bit about that and why it's so special.
Interesting thing is, since I came out with this material just this year, in the immediate future, General Electric is now issuing a new version of an atomic hydrogen torch. Isn't that interesting?
How about that?
And
how did that happen?
A person phoned me the other day and told me all about it. And they have a new atomic hydrogen torch they're preparing to release for the public. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. Isn't that a coincidence that it was dead for all those years?
Yeah.
And now I published something on it, and now they're coming out with it.
Now, I wonder how they're going to explain the inordinate amount of energy. You might want to maybe talk about why this is so special, this torch.
Well, of course, the discovery of the atomic hydrogen, what I call the atomic hydrogen process, was supposedly made by Langmuir about 1909 or 1912. And he was a chemist who had a lot of discoveries in the area of electrolysis and so forth. And he claimed, and of course the thing about Langmuir is he was an early relativist. So
right?
He believed in relativistic, what I call RQMs, relativistic quantum mechanics. And he basically, believed in the idea that however much energy was produced when the hydrogen recombined was the amount of energy it took to separate the hydrogen molecules into from diatomic molecules into monoatomic hydrogen. So basically, this process involves the separation of hydrogen, which tends to come as diatomic molecules, two atoms together, into its separate atoms. And then when those atoms come back together, they release 109 kilocalories per mole.
It sounds like a lot.
Molecules, per mole. And so that is a lot of energy. Now, what I found was a well-known Encyclopedia of Science, which says that it takes 103 calories per gram mole to separate the hydrogen, although the relativistic quantum mechanics say that it takes the same amount of heat to separate the molecules as you get back when they recombine.
So you're getting nothing in this
You end
reaction.
up getting it all, that you're just using electrical energy to separate it, and then you get it back when it combines. Well, why even do it? I mean,
Right.
If you could just do it with electricity, except you get temperatures that are far above what you would get with an electric arc.
In fact, you discovered an old text on this reaction, and even a photograph of an atomic hydrogen torch. Hydrogen being set free in a chemical reaction is often more reactive than hydrogen gas. The activity of such nascent newborn hydrogen in the act of liberation from its compounds is due to the hydrogen being in the atomic state. And down here, hydrogen molecules dissociate to atoms endothermically at high temperatures. Heat of dissociation about 103 calories gram mole. An electric arc or by irradiation. The hydrogen atoms recombine at the metal surface to provide heat for the acquired welding.
Now, I've been assured that this has to be a typographical error on the part of the Van Nostrand Encyclopedia people, even though this particular paragraph comes out of what is something like the 5th edition. Now,
Is that right?
They're
so 5 editions of mistakes.
Yeah, 5 editions. They have just carried this. Nobody's caught it, And the thing is this company published books on Tesla at one time when Tesla was alive.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, same company.
Well, that's interesting that they would claim that they've made mistakes in 5 editions. Here we have this is circa 1933. It's a welding book, welding and its applications, and it has here atomic hydrogen arc welding. In general, it says here molecular hydrogen, or hydrogen in its normal state as distinguished from atomic hydrogen, is a diatomic gas. That is, each molecule consists of 2 atoms. When hydrogen is broken down into the atomic form, it is very active and has great tendency to recombine to form molecular hydrogen. This is exactly what happens in the atomic hydrogen process. When the molecular hydrogen passes through the arc, much of it is changed into the atomic state and thus absorbs considerable amount of energy. In escaping the arc stream, these atoms recombine into molecules again at the outer edge of the arc fan, and the extra energy is released as heat. This extra heat is added to the intense heat of the arc itself, produces a temperature that is somewhat higher than either the ordinary arc or the gas flame. Theoretical temperature of the atomic hydrogen flame has been found to be 7,254 degrees Fahrenheit. However, heat absorption due to the formation of atomic hydrogen, it says here, reduces this to 5,340 degrees. But it talks about the what you're talking about as far as recombining.
Yeah.
So, so all these books are making mistakes, I guess.
The same thing happens, when you compress it and liquefy it, it takes less energy to vaporize it again than it took to compress it.
Really?
In other words, when you can vaporize it easier than you compress it, so you get a gain in energy just like that. And you can do the same thing with liquid air.
It happens quite a few times in nature, and yet we're taught to ignore that again. I don't see how people.
See, I don't think it's
I don't see
magic.
how science people can explain this stuff away all the time.
I just think that these elements are absorbing energy from cosmic sources when they're in a state of change. And because Tesla's theory of radioactivity is that the radioactive elements are not producing the radiation. They actually are being produced by the element reacting with zero-point radiation, what he called the primary solar rays or starlight, a very high-frequency form of radiation that's produced in stars. And he called this the primary solar rays, and I call it the zero-point radiation because this matches the definition today. And this radiation is ubiquitous. It comes from all directions. It's so high frequency it doesn't react with most matter at all. It passes right through everything. But I believe that certain elements, when they react and change, when they're in a change of state, or let's say they're in an act of transmutation, such as in K-capture, that they react with this and produce a radioactive effect. Because I don't think they've ever proven that mass loses weight through radiation. That's
that what they
all
claim?
strictly mathematical predictions. Yeah.
Ah.
According to E equals mc squared, if something sits there and puts out this high energy radiation, it's supposed to eventually convert all the mass, as long as it's producing
energy.
radiation, into pure, what they call pure energy. And that's the biggest joke I've ever seen in my life. There's no such thing as pure energy. What would be pure energy? Energy is the ability to do work. How can an ability have a pure form and some physical
So in a way, it's a process of transition
Yeah.
that creates the work.
It's just the potential that exists. That's all energy is. It's not a physical entity any more than time is some sort of little entity flying around in space. Time is just a fiction that we've invented just as a convenience to describe the rate at which events occur. And
all of a sudden now we're supposed to think that it's an entity in and of itself.
yeah, and we could travel in it, like
Maybe pretty soon they'll have time particles like they have
Yeah.
gravitons and things like that.
timatons.
Tamatons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chronotons.
While the world is drastically dependent on fossil fuel, researchers at NASA Langley Research Center are working on another way of producing energy-efficient nuclear power.
This other form of nuclear power releases energy by adding neutrons. Eventually they gain sufficient number of neutrons that they spontaneously decay into something of the same mass but a different element.
The different element is cleaner than traditional nuclear fuels and can be produced by raw materials such as nickel, carbon, and hydrogen.
It has the demonstrated ability to produce excess amounts of energy cleanly, without hazardous ionizing radiation, without producing nasty waste.
This clean form of energy is also powerful, able to support everything from transportation systems to infrastructure.
The easiest implementation of this would be for the home. You would have a unit that would replace your water heater, and you would have some sort of cycle to derive electrical energy from that, and then it would dump its waste heat into the water or air handling system for the building. So it would be a dual use thing. It would be sitting there producing heat, and then you derive electricity from it to run your electronics, power the house, power the building, power the light industry. And then the waste heat would be used for environmental control and warm water.
NASA's method for enhancement of surface plasma polaritons to initiate and sustain LENR in metal hydride systems, a clean nuclear energy for your power-operated technology.